Hello everyone, I'm Kate Andrews and here's a look at what is going on this week in the news. And we begin in Assisi. After meeting with his 8 cardinal advisors that will help him reform the Roman Curia, Pope Francis traveled to Assisi. There he held a special mass in the hometown of his namesake. Room Reports has more.
At the end of his homily in Assisi, Pope Francis called for the respect for life and nature. He explained that humans were created to offer care and protection, and not to destroy God's creations.
Il Santo d'Assisi testimonia il rispetto per tutto ciò che Dio ha creato e come Lui lo ha creato, senza sperimentare sul creato per distruggerlo, aiutarlo a crescere, a essere più bello e più simili a quello che Dio ha creato.
In his remarks, he explicitly called for an end to the conflicts in Syria and the Holy Land. Humans, he said, have a duty to look after all of God's creations, and especially one another.
L'uomo è chiamato a custodire l'uomo, dove l'uomo sia al centro della creazione, al posto dove Dio, il Creatore, lo ha voluto. Rispettiamo ogni essere umano. Cessino i conflitti armati che insanguinano la terra. Tacciano le armi e dovunque l'odio ceda il posto all'amore.
In addition to war and social problems like unemployment, the Pope also mentioned the recent death of hundreds of immigrants off the coast of the Italian island of Lampedusa.
As Father Reed mentioned, Pope Francis also asked for a moment of silence to remember the Lampedusa tragedy during his Sunday Angelus in St. Peter's Square. As efforts to recover the bodies of migrants who drowned October 3rd off Italy's southern coast continued, Pope Francis asked for prayers for the victim. He also sent Archbishop Konrad Kujewski to pray over the almost 200 corpses recovered and to visit survivors. The boat was reportedly carrying more than 500 immigrants from northern Africa, when it capsized and sank. The bodies of more than 100 people are believed to still be trapped in the wreckage. In news from Rome, the Legionaries of Christ will begin their Extraordinary General Chapter January 8th. During the meeting, they will elect new leaders and approve a new constitution. Pope Benedict had ordered the reform and organization of Regnum Christi, its lay branch, and the organization after revelations that their late founder had fathered children and sexually abused seminarians. The constitutions adopted by the delegates must be approved by Pope Francis before they take effect. The chapter is expected to conclude by the end of February. After the Legionaries' General Assembly, priests, consecrated members, and members of Regnum Christi will meet to finalize a new document explaining how all the branches of the movement work together. In news from around the country, we are now 8 days into the government shutdown, and while you've heard plenty about furloughs and the national debt, they aren't the only problems facing the country during this crisis. Programs for the poor and refugees are also suffering, and that means many are not getting the food and aid they require to live. Catholic News Service spoke with the Director for Migration and Refugee Services for the U.S. Catholic Bishops about the lesser-known victims of the government shutdown.
The U.S. federal government shutdown has put aid and nutrition programs at risk, forcing some faith-based contractors to use their own funds to keep them operating. U.S. Catholic leaders are urging members of Congress to unite and end the political stalemate, which they say is hurting the most vulnerable.
There are lots of people who are being hurt by this, from particularly programs that provide essential needs to the poor. And of course, some of our refugees are in that category. These are, generally speaking, not people who come in at the top of the economic ladder. They're generally the ones who are at the bottom of the ladder. And for example, many of them take advantage of the daycare programs, Head Start programs, and they can't do that in some cases. You know, it varies from program to program as to which ones may have some residual money and can continue their programs, but some of them had to tell their kids as of yesterday, you can't go to Head Start anymore. the WIC program for women with children and who are in need. All of this is just gone.
And finally in the news, Pope Francis is one popular guy. A new poll from Quinnipiac University shows that 53% of American Catholics view Pope Francis favorably, and 36% have a very favorable opinion of him. The poll also found that nearly 70% of U.S. Catholics agree with Pope Francis's comments that Catholics cannot insist only on issues related to abortion, gay marriage, and the use of contraceptive methods. 23% disagreed with his comments. The Quinnipiac University poll surveyed almost 1,800 American adults and almost 400 Catholics. The survey found that 60% of U.S. Catholics support same-sex marriage compared to the 56% support among all U.S. adults. It found that 16% of polled Catholics said abortion should be legal in all cases. It also found that 60% support the ordination of women priests. Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights, said the Quinnipiac poll is flawed, citing the small number of Catholics polled. Well, that is all the information we have for you at this time. I'm Kate Andrews. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV Network.